Good evening, and welcome to Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business, and tonight we begin our dive into Onision. This is why I hate you. I haven't opened the book yet. Are we ready? Good. Introduction. My name is Arthur Gale. I am a 17-year-old in high school. I'm starting this journal because I feel like no one knows me for who I am. My father is intentionally oblivious to the things I've been going through. It's impossible to have a normal human-to-human conversation with him. Not that I'd want to talk to that balding, delusional, self-loathing freak. I have no one to talk to, no one to hear me, and not automatically say something dreadful, idiotic in response. This reality leaves me with a void in my life. I need to vent to someone, but the problem is I hate most everyone I've ever met. How do you express yourself to people? How do you express yourself to people when you don't feel they're worth your time? They wouldn't even begin to understand me if I tried. If I even began to try and explain what was going on in my mind on a daily basis to the average person, I would be thrown in a padded cell. How do you express yourself to people when they're living in an entirely different world than you? They're living a goddamn lie, and they can't help it because they barely qualify as self-aware. This book will serve as my friend to talk to, my trash to dump my garbage in, and if anything, this is proof the days I endure even existed. This is my escape from the prison of thoughts that scream to get out of my head on a regular basis. I would speak my thoughts aloud to others, but I don't want them to give me another reason to hate them more than I already do. I can handle criticism, but stupidity is contagious. I'll have nothing to do with them. For the sake of not boring anyone who may read this, I'm going to do my best to explain the events in my life in a somewhat hybrid format. This will be half a normal book and half a normal journal. I realize I am insignificant. Me acknowledging that is somewhat ironic, considering I feel most everyone I encounter is beneath me. I ask you, knowing my life is so meaningless, what does that make the lives of people who have not once stopped and questioned their existence? Who are these meaningless flesh puppets? These wasted human shells born like cattle, only to wither like fruit and die as if they never existed to begin with? What is fame other than the recognition of a pointless person by a bunch of other pointless people? We succeed in life. Why? It all ends in death. It's all forgotten. Your massive house, your nice car, your trophy wife, it's all temporary. Once it's gone, you're left with little more than memories. How do we find ourselves willing to continue living, considering the true nature of our pathetic existence? Something I find incredibly laughable is we sit still to manage... Something I find incredibly laughable is we still manage to have a self-esteem. We still feel like our opinions matter, and some are so foolish as to even write their own thoughts down like I am now. Why? I am a writing, talking contradiction. The real point of me writing this is to keep myself from combusting. If for some reason someone reads this outside myself, maybe they will feel the same as I do. Maybe they're so sick of most everyone they've encountered. We are a curse on this planet, but fortunately for Earth, our presence here will no doubt be brief. You, reading this now, admit your life is meaningless and admit you don't matter. If you have any truth within yourself at all, just admit you can be replaced and the world won't even blink as your body rots. Take an honest look at our species. Admit humanity is a disease to the planet. Admit what we are and wonder why you even bother trying. I confront our fragile and overrated existence every day. I see people smile and I feel sick. I see people praying in front of my school in the morning and I'm overwhelmed with disgust. Just think of the obsession a person must have with their own importance to think that the creator of our infinite universe has time to grant their little wishes. Those same wishes are rarely about anything bigger than their little superficial lives. You're pretending you're talking to an all-powerful being, and all you're asking is that they allow you to pass your math test or score the winning touchdown. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You're not just unforgivably insane for believing some magical being is listening to your every thought. That's not enough stupidity for you. No, you're not so dumb you use this imaginary connection to focus on your little idiot life over real issues like world peace, ending hunger, and generally making anything outside your own mundane life better. I am done talking for today. You know my name, my obvious pessimism and disdain for society. Most importantly, you know there's a good chance, even if this book is someday published, even if you're its biggest fan, there are likely hundreds of ways in which I hate you. Chapter 1. There is no point. My house is a 2-story cliché suburban abomination. My room is painted white, like every other room in this entire goddamn country. My father doesn't allow me to tack posters directly to my walls, so my room is lined with massive picture frames containing my morbid and gothic posters within. I was sleeping in my annoyingly well-lit room early in the morning when my father Jerry woke me up to go to school. It was the same old routine. After the usual vegetarian breakfast he forced me to eat, he had nothing but fake meat, fake milk, and vegetables in the fridge at all times. We were off to my school. Jerry drives me on a daily basis because he insists he loves me, and I quote, "No Linfeld family member will ever ride a yellow bus," as if he's a hero. If anything, he's a villain, constantly subjecting me to daily 10-minute sermons about how his beliefs in Middle Eastern deities, like God and angels, will lead me to a better life. Sure, Dad. Tell me more about how your love for a made-up super god has brought you so much happiness. Every time you do, I just think of all the atheist millionaires who accomplished more for them than your magical invisible deity ever will for you. As always, school started painfully early. We were always on the road before any other cars, so the beginning of every day felt like we were living in a post-apocalyptic world of death and desperation. I rarely talked to anyone during my classes, and even less after they're over. More often than not, I feel like talking to most people is like trying to bond with a child. Essentially, no matter what we do, that's basically what a lot of us are. children surrounded by children. Even most adults are just oversized kids, so frail, terrified, confused, and desperate. The nature of our daily behavior is that every little move we make around other people can change someone's life. That change can lead to another change, creating potential to domino into larger events, until before you know it, someone's crying or walking into a post office to paint the walls with blood while texturing the paint with brain matter. Humans are horribly sensitive creatures. It's as if our greatest accomplishment in creating a language with distinct and consistent words was giving ourselves another reason to hate each other. Think about all the people you think are morons. Now think about what percentage of those people you hate because of the things they say alone. That's exactly my point. Without verbal language, how do you start a racist, sexist, or homophobic group? How do you organize a war? How do you cause wide-scale suffering if you don't have language like we have? Verbal communication is key to committing genocide. You want world peace? Stop participating in this pointless social game. Commit yourself to silence. Statistically, you have nothing valuable to say anyway. A wonderful example of a dreadfully desperate human being would be this kid named Chris in my first period class. This dysfunctional failed abortion is constantly trying to cause trouble with the teacher, other students, and his surroundings in general. His behavior is no doubt a response to his mother never paying attention to him at home, while the girls at school treat him like he's a disease with legs. It's people like Chris you could say only a few words to, and his entire life would crumble right before your eyes. The fact that people give so much power to the made-up words we use on a daily basis would be laughable if it wasn't so tragically and horribly pitiful. I've noticed for some time Chris has an adorable little neck. I imagine if I wrapped my hands around his throat using only half my strength, I could very easily snap his neck. I wonder if he'd still find value in his efforts to cause disruptions wherever he went. Or, as I slowly broke the bones in his body, would he feel remorse? Would little Chris finally see what a waste of oxygen he was, and finally do something meaningful with his meaninglessness? No, he's an idiot, and will one day die an idiot. I'm incredibly satisfied with my choice to avoid conversations with others as much as possible. One primary example of people I rightfully treat like human abortions they are is this big-breasted ditzy girl named Jessica. She has the personality and looks of someone destined for the pole. In other words, she's the physical embodiment of what every other generic guy on the planet desires in a woman. Thing is, the very same people who desire her would never want to have children with her. She could never take care of a baby. Not when she herself has the brain of an 11-year-old with just a hint of princess syndrome. Princess syndrome is a snotty, self-absorbed female freak who practically craps her own pants every time she sees her reflection. Someone with princess syndrome can be found constantly treating everyone else like they owe her copious amounts of compliments and sincere gratitude for simply being allowed to exist within 50 feet of her. To summarize, add precious well-endowed Jessica to the pile of people I classify as wastes of space. Amazingly enough, Chris and Jessica were the only two people who actually stood out to me today. Most of the people in my first class were well behaved, which was likely due to the fact they remained silent. Today, not a single student expressed an uneducated opinion based on their natural, uneventful, and inexperienced lives. It was refreshing to see, and left me plenty of time to focus on our soon-to-be diabetic teacher. A man who clearly wants to be teaching us as much as a pig wants to be locked away in a slaughterhouse. At lunch, I found myself enjoying the usual routine of throwing away my father's vegetarian sack lunch and shelling out the quarters I stole from his vacation fund jar to buy the usual ham sandwich. I often ate that and something called chocolate nutty bars, which are basically peanut butter smeared on wafers covered in chocolate. Those foods are some of the few things I enjoy about life. You could say, "Wow, Arthur, you make fun of people a lot. What about your own health?" Actually, I'm in great shape. Until I'm not. I'll keep eating what I like. Now, before I continue, I'd really like to point out how stupid my father is with his diet. I'm on the topic, and I'm livid about it at the moment, so here we go. Dad, Jerry, whatever, you're a moron. On a daily basis, you preach about your religion. You're better than me for following it. On a daily basis, you preach about your diet as if it's better than mine. Here's the thing, Dad. You're fat, not me. You are a bloated mess of a human being. You run for miles every other day, and look at you. You're still an obese and grotesque simpleton. When fat people give me advice on my diet, what am I supposed to do with that? You eat nothing but carbs and are obsessed with pastries. You think it's okay to have copious amounts of dessert at every meal just because you jog a little. You're twice my age but have the dietary logic of a preteen. You're acting like you're going to live longer because you don't suck on the muffler of a car, and yet here you are sniffing paint. You got the same result because you traded one poison for another. Obviously your diet isn't working for you, but you still force it on me anyway. Have you ever thought about anyone's needs outside your own? Then there's your religion that you force on me. You do this because, of course, you have custody of me, so why not treat me like I'm your literal property? That's right. Because from a legal standpoint, I'm essentially a slave who has to put up with your hypocrisies and delusions every day till I reach the magical, made-up status you people call a legal adult. I find it hilarious that you were talking about how great your invisible superhero is when your life is worse off than most of the other dads I've met. Your wife, my mom, is dead. You're miserable at your job. You are loaded with debt, and the only kid you ever had was a son who hates you because you can't even be honest with him about who you are. You lie constantly about the things you've done in my past and instead just hide behind the mirage of forgiveness. On top of all this, you have the nerve to treat me like the life you live is superior. How damaged are you? I'm done ranting. Let's get back to my day. After lunch, I went to my remaining 2 classes and waited for Dad's double-chinned girlfriend to pick me up. As you probably guessed, she too is a vegetarian. Noticing a pattern here? She wasn't disgustingly obese, but her neck was. I call it frog syndrome. The great thing about my dad's girlfriend is that most of the time she shuts up. She rarely sends a single word my way, which is refreshing. It's as if she knows I'm a human proximity mine and will explode on anyone who makes a wrong move around me. It could be that or the fact that she knows she is nothing compared to my real mom. Even my dad likely sees her as second best. What a miserable, self-loathing person she must be. Once I got home, I walked up to my bedroom, closed the door gently, thanks to former complaints from my father about slamming the door, and put on my headphones to blast my favorite music. That was my day. Just a sample of my typical irrelevant first world white boy life. That was something else. But we'll talk about it later. This has been Doctorpiece Theater, and my name is Dr. Dennis Business, and as always, my friends,